Battle Through the Heavens, Grand World. Chapter 251 Meeting an Old Friend. Looking at the man who suddenly appeared, Zukun's facial expression changed slightly. The strength of the former was so profound that even he couldn't tell what level he had reached. A bastard from the Yunluo Academy, right? He turned his head and said. Luo Chong looked at Zukun and the others with a cold look in his eyes. Zukun looked at the 8 students behind him and turned his head around. His eyes were filled with coldness. He stared at Luo Chong and said coldly, "What do you want? Let's talk about it first. The people behind me are only new students who have just entered the school for a few months. According to the agreement between Yunluo Academy and the Chaotic 100 sects, no emperor or above experts are allowed to attack them." What? Luo Chong frowned. He really didn't know about this agreement. Bullshit agreement. Even if I kill all of you here, who would know? Luo Chong sneered and raised his arms. He said in a ferocious manner. Watch carefully. This pair of arms was caused by Lin Dao from the Yunluo Academy. You guys can give it to him in your dreams tonight. I will definitely take his head off. After saying that, Luo Chong's body flashed and rushed towards Zukun. Along the way, the air was violently rubbed and vibrated. Zukun's expression became serious. His gaze quickly swept across the new students behind him. Most of these guys were at the sovereign rank. With the strength of the enemy, even if it was just the aftermath, it was enough to heavily injure them. Dong. With this thought in mind, Zukun did not dare to stay where he was. His feet suddenly stomped on the ground, and his body shot out like a cannonball. Purple gold light shone in his eyes, and his arms extended like dragon claws. The faint purple scales on his arms seemed to be able to tear through the air. Buzz. A violent collision sound was suddenly heard. Zukun flew backwards with a pale face. His purple robe was tattered and there was a trace of blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Luo Chong landed on the ground. His face was flushed red, and both of his arms were hanging down. An unbearable pain came from his arms, and it felt like his heart was going to be torn apart. In the collision just now, although Zukun had suffered a heavy blow from him, both of his arms, which were already severely injured, had also suffered a heavy blow. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Zukun stared at Luo Chong's face and pondered for a moment. Immediately, he said in a cold voice, Luo Chong, who is ranked 130 in the fierce ranking. I heard that your strength has already reached the level of an emperor for many years. Now that you are attacking these new students, are you trying to start a war between the Yunluo Academy and the Silver Moon Group? Luo Chong's face twitched when he was recognized by Zukun. His cold eyes looked at Zukun and the few pale-faced young men not far behind him. He let out a cold laugh. He said slowly, "Fight. You think too highly of yourselves. Do you really think that it's because of you? Also, I have said it before. The Yunluo will never know about this." As soon as his voice faded, the origin monarch ki on Luo Chong's arms surged and transformed into a layer of sovereign ki armor that protected his arms. In the next moment, his body swayed and he had already rushed towards Zukun. Zukun had roamed the fighting ki continent for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, he would not be frightened by a few words from Luo Chong. He merely smiled coldly. When he heard this, his purple robe moved even though there was no wind. He spoke coldly. Lin Dao showed mercy and didn't kill you. You still don't know what's good for you. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want with just the strength of an emperor? Zukun had heard about Lin Dao's legend in all these years in the Yunluo Academy. When he, Guyuan and a few others were led by Elder Fang to the Yunluo Academy for the first time, they happened to encounter Lin Dao's successful cultivation. A majestic ki soared into the sky from within the academy, breaking through the clouds in the sky. The pressure that filled the sky almost covered the entire Yunluo Academy. At that time, an unusual phenomenon erupted between the heavens and the earth. Countless origin monarch ki violently surged over, transforming into numerous blades and spears that seemed to be able to split the heavens and the earth. They carried a force that shook the hearts of everyone as they poured into a valley within the academy. After which, everything returned to calm. The unusual phenomenon only lasted for a moment before disappearing. Later on, they heard from the elders of the academy that Lin Dao had once escaped the pursuit of an emperor cultivation expert when he was training outside. He had even single-handedly caused a bloody storm in the 5 capital cities of the capital of Chaos's southern capital. In short, this fellow, according to a powerful elder in the academy, if Lin Dao didn't die, he would definitely be a proud son of heaven that would shock the entire star field in the future. As soon as his voice faded, Zhu Kun's aura suddenly changed. An incomparably bitingly cold aura erupted from his body, and an endless amount of ferocious aura spread out. It was as if an ancient ferocious beast carrying a supreme dignity was roaring towards him. Wu Luo Chong's attack couldn't help but slow down. Under the influence of Zhu Kun's ki. Arg. The moment Luo Chong's attack stopped, Zhu Kun's body, which had been accumulating energy for a long time, suddenly moved. His body was surrounded by a purple golden light. Behind him, it was as if a purple golden giant dragon had risen into the sky, roaring at Luo Chong. Zhu Kun's true form was the ancient void dragon. All these years of cultivation had made him realize it clearly. No monarch skill was as powerful as the true form, the monarch skill. As his strength increased, the monarch spell that had once delighted him was slowly being eliminated. Now, it seemed like it was nothing, but the attack of the main body was different. This was a trump card that could be used to increase his strength as he grew stronger. Because of this, even Zhu Kun himself didn't realize that although his strength was only at the 5th monarch spirit, it wasn't any weaker than an emperor's. The 8 new students following Zhu Kun were stunned as they looked at Zhu Kun's current appearance. Although the latter was extremely fast, the dragon shadow that appeared behind him was exceptionally obvious. Sandstorms erupted wherever the human figure passed, and a deep trace was drawn on the ground. Roar. Following a dragon roar that shook one's heart, Zhu Kun bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a trace of fresh blood. In the next moment, the dragon shadow on his back suddenly emerged. It rushed over like lightning and completely wrapped around Luo Chong. Boom! Zhu Kun leapt away from the impact of the explosion. His eyes stared at the dust that was gradually dissipating. This move could be said to be his strongest attack. When he was cultivating an illusory spirit realm, he used this attack. Some emperors were no match for him, but against Luo Chong, it was hard to say. Although the latter's arms were seriously injured, his strength had been greatly reduced, but he was still a veteran emperor who had advanced for many years. He was lucky enough to survive under Lin Dao's hands. This move of his, he was indeed somewhat perturbed. Bang! Before the dust settled, a black shadow suddenly shot out from within, carrying a cold killing intent towards Zhu Kun. Zhu Kun's expression turned serious. Both of his arms stretched out at lightning speed. As the origin monarch ki flowed, it finally slowed down the speed of the black shadow. Dong! The black shadow landed on the ground. Upon closer inspection, it was a completely black poison nail. It was about half an inch long and incomparably sharp. It was the spirit weapon that Luo Chong had relied on to become famous for, the black poison nail. After relieving the attack of the black poison nail, the one in Zhu Kun's body. Looking at the dust and sand that had scattered in front of him, a somewhat miserable figure appeared. Luo Chong's arms were slightly bent in front of his chest. In a defensive state, he relied on the enormous origin monarch ki to resist Zhu Kun's killing move with great difficulty. However, he had also paid a terrible price. The silver robe on his body was shattered. His hands, which were wrapped in bandages, trembled slightly. A piercing pain struck his mind. Luo Chong couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He placed his trembling hands down and looked at Zhu Kun. A ferocious expression immediately emerged on his face. Even if his arms were seriously injured, he should be able to kill a monarch spirit with ease. He never thought that this guy in front of him would cause him so much trouble. Hey! He looked at Zhu Kun's pale face. Luo Chong smiled coldly, but he still felt some lingering fear in his heart. If this guy was a little stronger, he would really die here. Bang! The tip of Luo Chong's foot suddenly stomped on the ground, and he instantly appeared in front of Zhu Kun. He violently kicked out with his foot, and a buzzing sound that seemed to tear the air apart continuously rang out. Due to the excessive use of the origin monarch ki, Zhu Kun's body became sluggish for a moment. At this moment, he was sent flying by Luo Chong's kick. He was sent flying backwards and crashed into a huge rock in the distance. The huge force caused the huge rock to crack. Breathing heavily, Luo Chong endured the pain in his arms. He looked at Zhu Kun, who had become much weaker. He let out a cold snort and walked towards the 8 freshmen with a sinister smile on his face. No one from the Yunluo was allowed to leave. He saw Luo Chong. Luo Chong walked towards the new students. Zhu Kun gritted his teeth and tried his best to stand up. However, he didn't have any strength left in his body. He did not expect that he would still fail in less than a week's time before the end of the trial. Looking at the 8 new students who did not know what to do, Zhu Kun gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. He was about to struggle to get up. Swoosh! Luo Chong sneered. A black light flashed across his chest. 8 black poisonous nails appeared. Under the control of the former, they shot out explosively. Their target was the 8 new students. No. When Zhu Kun, who had just stood up, saw this, his eyes almost split open. He endured the pain in his body and rushed forward explosively, but in the end, he was still a step too slow. Who? Suddenly, a few strands of crimson gold. Flames appeared out of thin air, and instantly wrapped around the 8 black poisonous nails. In the next moment, the 8 black poisonous nails lost their offensive power, and fell onto the ground. They were burned into ashes by the flames. Who is it? Luo Chong's expression changed when he saw the flame that suddenly appeared. He immediately shouted out loudly. According to what he knew, no one in Capital of Chaos had such a strange technique. Ha ha. Senior Zhu Kun, I didn't expect to meet you here. A joyful voice suddenly sounded while Zhu Kun was also surprised. In the next moment, a black-robed young man appeared beside the 8 new students. The latter was looking at Zhu Kun with a smile on his face. Zhu Kun's eyes paused when he saw the black-robed young man. An incomparable joy suddenly erupted from his eyes. Xiao Yan. Battle Through the Heavens, Grand World. Chapter 252 Zhu Kun. Looking at the smiling black-robed youth not far away, Zhu Kun blinked his eyes in disbelief. That's right, it was Xiao Yan. Even after nearly 10 years, the latter's appearance hadn't changed at all. If there was any change in his appearance, it should be because the temperament on his body had changed a long time ago. Who are you? Luo Chong squinted his eyes, and a cold aura emerged in his eyes. Although this guy who suddenly appeared seemed to only have the strength of a 6 paths monarch spirit. But the pressure it gave him made him extremely uncomfortable. Xiao Yan looked at Zhu Kun, whose face was filled with disbelief, and his heart was filled with mixed emotions. An indescribable feeling arose spontaneously as he looked at Zhu Kun's face. Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile. After a few years of training, Zhu Kun's arrogance had also been restrained. Although he no longer had the supreme aura he had when he first arrived in the Great World. However, a kind of restrained aura was quietly formed. This kind of aura, it was even more terrifying. Looking to the side, the 8 young men and women were all looking at him in shock. With a thought in Xiao Yan's mind, he understood what was going on. Since Zhu Kun was the leader, it was estimated that Guyuan was also leading the freshmen to train in Capital of Chaos. With this thought in mind, Xiao Yan looked at Luo Chong who was standing in front of him. Xiao Yan squinted his eyes. This guy's strength wasn't weak either. He could be considered an expert even amongst emperors. When he was on his way earlier. If not for the Xiaoao sensing something and reminding him to hurry over. Otherwise, even if Zhu Kun could escape, the 8 freshmen can't escape. Hong Long. Xiao Yan, this guy can't move his arms. If we work together, even if we can't kill him, we can still force him to retreat. Zhu Kun gave Xiao Yan a deep look. He could also vaguely sense it. Currently, Xiao Yan's strength was probably not any weaker than his. When he realized this, Zhu Kun could only smile bitterly in his heart. He had been bitterly cultivating an illusory spirit realm, but in the end, he was actually on par with Xiao Yan. This kind of feeling also flashed across his mind. Zhu Kun looked at Luo Chong and said coldly. Luo Chong coldly harumphed when he heard this. 2 monarch spirit were actually so arrogant. Even if he couldn't move his arms, just the suppression from the aura of an emperor was enough to torture them. Luo Chong was about to speak when Xiao Yan smiled and looked at Zhu Kun. There's no need for you to do anything. It's just a crippled emperor. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Zhu Kun was stunned when he heard this. Before he could react, his vision blurred. Luo Chong's figure had already flown out and brushed past him. He violently crashed into a huge rock on the side, and the huge rock instantly broke into pieces. Luo Chong's miserable cry caused Zhu Kun to come back to his senses. The latter looked at Luo Chong, who was lying in a pile of broken rocks, wailing continuously. His heart couldn't help but tremble. How is it? Senior Zhu, are you alright? Xiao Yan walked forward and opened his tightly clenched fist. On his palm was a medicine pill that could treat external injuries. You. Zhu Kun opened his mouth and let out a bitter laugh. With Xiao Yan's help, he stood up and took the medicine pill from Xiao Yan and swallowed it. In an instant, heat waves came from his abdomen and the pain all over his body seemed to have disappeared. You are still as abnormal as ever. He looked at the smiling Xiao Yan. Zhu Kun shook his head helplessly. He thought that he had improved a lot. It was already very fast, but Xiao Yan was even faster. This time, your father-in-law is going to be sad again. Thinking of this, Zhu Kun suddenly smiled, and his annoyed mood instantly became better. Father. When he heard Zhu Kun mention Guyuan, Xiao Yan also smiled. Facing these family members, his tensed heart, which had been tense for many years, finally relaxed a little. The relaxed smile that he had not revealed for a long time also revealed itself. This is not the place to talk. Bring them out first. Xiao Yan withdrew his smile. He glanced at the dense forest around him and spoke in a deep voice. This was the west direction of Capital of Chaos. It was a dangerous place. No one could tell what would suddenly jump out in the next moment. Zhu Kun nodded his head. This place was indeed extremely dangerous. If it wasn't for the herbs required for the mission, he would never have brought these freshmen here. Who is this guy? Looking at the wailing Luo Chong in the distance, Xiao Yan suddenly spoke. Even in the capital of chaos, an emperor was still a powerful force. It was impossible for him to come out and die. This is Luo Chong, ranked 130 on the fierce ranking. The strength displayed on the fierce ranking is that of 8 emperors. He is the brother of Luo Jun, the Silver Moon Group's sect master. A few months ago, both of his arms were shattered by Lin Dao. I didn't expect that he would still be alive. Zhu Kun looked at Luo Chong and said in a low voice. Then, he looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing next to him with an expressionless face. He was in 8 emperors. Even if he couldn't use both of his arms, he could at least exert the strength of 3 emperors. He didn't expect that an expert of this level would be seriously injured by Xiao Yan's punch. Just how strong was this guy? Lin Dao. Upon hearing this name, Xiao Yan nodded his head. Then, he looked at the screaming Luo Chong and revealed an inexplicable smile. This guy's strength was average, but he was still able to survive Lin Dao's attack. His luck was also extraordinary. Take their men and leave this place first. I will clean this place up and come find you. All right, Xiao Yan said softly, looking around. Zhu Kun's eyes swept over Luo Chong, who was in the distance. He nodded. He was also a man who had shocked the world. Naturally, he wouldn't have any compassion for his enemies, especially those who had offended him. Leader, who is he? Seeing Zhu Kun walk over, the few students who had recovered their senses looked at him, their eyes filled with astonishment. Although Zhu Kun and Luo Chong only had a few moves in their previous battle, however, the difference was obvious with just a glance. Xiao Yan had sent Luo Chong flying with just a single punch. An expert of this level. He looked only a little older than them, but his strength was actually so powerful. He is your senior. Zhu Kun laughed out loud. Although he had met Luo Chong today, meeting Xiao Yan was an exciting thing. Xuan and Kai Lin would probably be very happy. Of course, there was also Guyuan. After Zhu Kun and the others left, Xiao Yan arrived in front of Luo Chong. The latter was lying on the ground with a weak key and a painful expression on his face. When he saw Xiao Yan walking towards him, his eyes were filled with hatred and resentment as he panted heavily. Who are you? I have never seen you on the Yunluo's ranking. Xiao Yan raised his brows, and the corner of his mouth slowly curled up. He said in a low voice, I will be on ranking list soon. However, you may not be able to see it. Luo Chong's facial expression changed slightly when he heard this. He calmed down and said in a cold tone, this place is under the jurisdiction of the Silver Moon Group. Anyone who dares to act recklessly here will surely be hunted down by the Silver Moon Group. Ridiculous. Xiao Yan sneered. He glanced at Luo Chong's arms and smiled coldly. Without any hesitation, he stomped on Luo Chong's arms. A crisp sound of bone cracking was heard. In an instant, a miserable scream was heard from the latter's mouth. Bastard! I will kill you! Veins popped out on Luo Chong's forehead. His eyes were scarlet red, and the intense pain caused his face to distort. He let out a ferocious roar. In this place, you don't need a reason to kill someone. Moreover, you dare to attack my old friend. Xiao Yan's voice was cold. A cold glint surged within his eyes. If the Xiaoao did not detect anything unusual, he would definitely not come here. Xiao Yan really did not dare to imagine the consequences. If Ziyan came to the great world in the future, what face would he have to face her? 130 fierce ranking, right. That's good too. Those who are ranked should have corresponding rewards according to convention. It just so happens that I am going to the Yunluo Academy. Consider your head as a meeting gift. He sneered coldly. Xiao Yan's fist suddenly moved, and Luo Chong's roar suddenly stopped. Outside the mountain forest, Zhu Kun laughed when he saw Xiao Yan walk out. He went forward and took a close look at the former. He sighed with emotion. You are really heartless. It has been 9 or 10 years since we last met. When we first came to the academy, Xuan and Kai Lin were worried all day long. They did not think about food or tea. When Xiao Yan heard this, his expression darkened slightly and revealed a forced smile. Indeed, he had owed the two girls too much over the years. Are they all right? Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan asked the question that he was most concerned about. Don't worry, they are all fine. A few years ago, they entered the illusory spirit realm. I think it is about time they come out. You and your wife can finally reunite. Hearing Zhu Kun's hearty laughter, Xiao Yan's worries were finally relieved. A trace of excitement quietly spread in his heart. It had been so many years since they last saw each other. He had no idea how strong these two girls had become. Battle through the heavens, Grand World. Chapter 253 Planning. Zhu Kun looked at the black-robed young man in front of him, his eyes couldn't help but exclaim. When he saw the young man nod his head lightly, even with Zhu Kun's composure, he couldn't help but exclaim. When he first arrived in the Great World, he did not have a strong feeling about the 3 tasks that Xiao Yan had accepted. But now, he finally understood how abnormal the holy rank trial had reached. Just a few numbers, but to gather so many monarch crystals, even an emperor wouldn't be able to achieve it, let alone a fighting monarch that had just arrived in the Great World. As for obtaining the highest honor of a prefecture and collecting 5 middle-rank heavenly beasts, it was even more of a fantasy to him. Even a monarch emperor would have to put in a lot of effort to complete these 2 points. You bastard, how did you do it? That Mu Yuyang spent 12 years to complete the holy rank trial and created the Yunluo Academy's record. I never thought that you would break it in less than 100 years. Looking at Xiao Yan, Zhu Kun could only let out a long sigh. After a long time, he finally said, that bastard Guyuan found a good son-in-law. Mu Yuyang. When Xiao Yan heard this name, his expression changed. When he had just received the holy rank trial mission, Elder Fang had told him that if he could return in about 10 years, he might be able to meet this guy. According to what Luo Xing had said, Mu Yuyang hadn't shown himself since he killed a monarch emperor 3 years ago in Capital of Chaos. Could it be that he had already left the Yunluo Academy? Ignoring Zhu Kun's teasing, Xiao Yan looked at the former and said in a deep voice, Mu Yuyang, are you still in the academy? I don't know about that. Although he has become an inner circle disciple, Mu Yuyang is an elite disciple in the realm in Valley. His status is even more respected than ordinary elders. Naturally, his whereabouts are not something we can grasp. Zhu Kun curled his lips and said helplessly. Realm in Valley. There are really a lot of good places in Yunluo Academy. Xiao Yan was slightly stunned when he heard this new term, and then he laughed lightly. Zhu Kun smiled when he heard this, and looked at the students who were looking up at each other not far away. He said in a deep voice, let's leave this place first. This is the territory of Silver Moon Group. If you kill Luo Chong, you will be discovered by the people of Silver Moon Group. There will be a conflict. Xiao Yan nodded his head. The Silver Moon Group was ranked in the top 50 of the chaotic crowd. It was because of this that Xiao Yan was able to gain the upper hand. He wasn't someone with Luo Chong's strength. Silver Moon Group's headquarters. At this moment, in the main hall, the sect master of the Silver Moon Group, Luo Jun, was sitting on the main seat with a smile on his face. Below him was a dignified middle-aged man wearing a gray robe. There was a hint of dust on his face. Brother Zhao, thank you for coming all the way here. I'll do it first as a sign of respect. Luo Jun raised his wine glass and said politely to the middle-aged man, then drank it all in one gulp. The middle-aged man was Zhao Qingshan, who had just arrived from the Myriad Spirit City. He laughed out loud and drank the wine in his glass as well. He said in a deep voice, "Sect Master Luo, you are too polite. The Silver Moon Group is considered to be very famous among the chaotic crowd. It is my great honor to be able to contribute to the Silver Moon Group. Thank you for your help, Brother Zhao. I have a younger brother named Luo Chong. Brother Zhao should have heard of him." Luo Jun didn't stand on ceremony and looked at Zhao Qingshan with a smile. Zhao Qingshan smiled and said, "I heard that someone told me that a few months ago, the Yunluo Academy's Azure Dragon Lin Dao came out to train. Luo Chong was envious of Lin Dao's ranking on the Yunluo ranking. He wanted to challenge him. Both of his arms were shattered by Lin Dao's palm, and he disdained to kill him. Fang Kai was lucky enough to survive, but of course. These are all rumors in the market, of course I won't believe them." After hearing Zhao Qingshan's words, the expressions of the rest of the upper echelons of Silver Moon Group turned cold. What kind of words were these? They were totally touching the Black Silver Moon Group. Luo Jun laughed out loud after hearing what Zhao Qingshan said. That's the truth. After that Lin Dao raged, even I didn't want to fight him. Luo Chong is overestimating himself. He went forward to provoke him. It's lucky that he managed to survive. Zhao Qingshan took a sip of wine and nodded with a smile. In his heart, he was amazed by Lin Dao's strength. Although Luo Jun's strength hadn't reached the Emperor cultivation yet, he was still amazed by Lin Dao's strength. As for Lin Dao, he had come out to train in order to find an opportunity to break through to the Monarch Emperor, but he was at the level of an emperor. This had already caused Luo Jun to be afraid of this monstrous genius of the Yunluo Academy. He was truly terrifying. Although Luo Chong managed to save his life, both of his arms have been crippled. Although there are many powerful alchemists in the capital of chaos, all of them have ulterior motives. I wouldn't dare to invite them out recklessly. Therefore, I have no choice but to risk my life and ask Master Zhao to help me." After saying that, Luo Jun cupped his fists and said in a deep voice, "Sect Master Luo is too polite. It is my honor to be chosen by Sect Master Luo." Even though Zhao Qingshan was an imperial alchemist, he did not dare to offend Luo Jun. He immediately returned the salute. Actually, inviting Master Zhao here this time is not only because of Luo Chong's injuries. After pondering for a moment, Luo Jun suddenly said softly. At the same time, his sharp gaze shot towards Zhao Qingshan, causing him to frown slightly. "What?" Zhao Qingshan remained calm and said in a deep voice. He had already expected that this trip would not be just to treat Luo Chong's arms. "I heard from the spies in the Yunluo Academy that the #1 genius of the Yunluo, Mu Yuyang, will be coming out in the next few days to complete his graduation mission." Mu Yuyang. Upon hearing this name, Zhao Qingshan's facial expression changed slightly. He looked around and saw the expressions of the higher-ups of the Silver Moon Group. Clearly, this name had given them a lot of pressure. Sect Master Luo is really bold to have designs on Mu Yuyang. Zhao Qingshan sucked in a breath of cold air and said in a deep voice. Even though he was far away in Myriad Spirit City, he had heard a little about Mu Yuyang's deeds. What this guy had done was totally not in line with his current strength. 3 years ago, Mu Yuyang had yet to advance to the Monarch Emperor. When he came out to train, he had killed a famous Monarch Emperor level expert with a single strike, shocking the entire capital of chaos. Now, after 3 years, no one knew what level he had reached. No matter how powerful Mu Yuyang is, he is still only a Monarch Emperor. With our combined strength and the formation that we set up beforehand, even if he is a proud son of heaven, he won't be able to escape alive. Luo Jun smiled coldly and said in a ferocious tone. That Lin Dao is known as the Azure Dragon, and his combat strength is unparalleled amongst his peers. He's ranked below Mu Yuyang. With the strength of the Silver Moon Group, I'm afraid it's impossible for them to devour Mu Yuyang's bone. Zhao Qingshan gritted his teeth and spoke in a deep voice. Don't worry. Since we are going to kill him, I am naturally prepared. Although he is very powerful, however, he lacks the protection of his soul. Furthermore, in the past, when these fellows came out to train, they would suddenly appear without anyone knowing. After wreaking havoc in a certain place, they would quickly leave, but now, we can grasp Mu Yuyang's whereabouts in detail. Luo Jun said disapprovingly. Besides, Master Zhao should know the price of Mu Yuyang on the Yunluo's ranking. You should know that. 1.5 billion. Zhao Qingshan gritted his teeth when he heard this. In the end, he uttered a number that made his heart palpitate. Yes. Furthermore, 1.5 billion was only one of them. Part of it. The list also states that after killing Mu Yuyang, his weapon will belong to us. Mu Yuyang's weapon. That is a true heavenly weapon. Luo Jun nodded and continued to throw out bait. I believe that with Mu Yuyang's strength, there won't only be one heavenly weapon. When the time comes. Hee. Luo Jun didn't speak another word and only smiled. Why did you find me? Zhao Qingshan was silent for a while. He looked up at Luo Jun and said with an expressionless face. It's very simple. Great Master Zhao's power is far away from Myriad Spirit City, and I don't have any conflicts of interest in the capital of chaos. Besides, Great Master Zhao's soul is extremely powerful, and he has a certain reputation even in the capital of chaos. The benefits of killing Mu Yuyang is enough to tempt all the people in the sect. As for the others, I really don't trust them. More importantly, the genius of Zhao family, Zhao Peng, has a very good relationship with my son, Luo Xing. I really admire this young man. Luo Jun said slowly as he stared at Zhao Qingshan. Zhao Qingshan's expression changed when he heard this. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "How confident are you?" Luo Jun raised his eyebrows slightly and pondered for a moment. He said slowly, 8 points. 8 points. What a big tone. Okay, then I'll work with you once. After saying that, Zhao Qingshan drank all the wine in the wine cup in front of him in a single breath. He clenched his fist tightly and the wine cup shattered with a loud bang. Luo Jun did not say anything. He also raised his head and drank the wine in one gulp. At the same time, the cup in his hand also shattered and turned into powder. The two of them didn't discuss how to divide the profits. As an old fox, they knew that if the matter failed in the end, saying this now would only be a joke. You have heard of the Yunluo's ranking. Hee. I don't know when it started, but the experts of the Yunluo Academy are proud of being able to enter the Yunluo's ranking. However, no one has ever been able to shake the position of the top 3. Listening to Zhu Kun's words, Xiaoyan silently nodded his head. The top 3 of the Yunluo's ranking were all people with heaven-defying strength. It was easier said than done for each of them to surpass them, but it's different now. You have returned. As a Saint rank trial participant, I'm sure your ranking on the Yunluo's ranking will not be lower than Lin Dao's. Although you and Mu Yuyang are both Saint rank trial participant, he is much older than you. 3 years ago, he was able to kill a monarch emperor with a single strike. Now, I estimate that he can even fight an emperor cultivation warrior with 2 strikes. In the hearts of the Yunluo Academy's students, Mu Yuyang is already a deified figure. As for that Lin Dao, he is called the Azure Dragon. Although he is also a monstrous genius, compared to Mu Yuyang, he is more like an ordinary person. Zhu Kun pursed his lips. Before he entered the illusory spirit realm, he was fortunate enough to meet Lin Dao once. The latter had a cold expression on his face, like a lone wolf under the remnant blood of the Azure Sun. A piercingly cold ki filled the sky and earth, but for some reason, Zhu Kun did not have a shred of fear when facing Lin Dao's ki. Thinking about it, this was the courage that the fighting monarch of lower realm had once possessed. From the beginning until the end, he had never seen Mu Yuyang. He was like an ethereal immortal that was out of reach. The reason why Lin Dao is called the Azure Dragon is because of his heavenly weapon, the Imperial Dragon Point Blue Spear. On the Yunluo Academy's weapons ranking, there is a list of the weapons of all the outstanding students from the past until now. There are thousands of them, and the Imperial Dragon Point Blue Spear is ranked 7th. Battle Through the Heavens, Grand World. Chapter 254 Guyuan's Strength. 7th. Xiao Yan was shocked when he heard this. The number of monstrous geniuses that the Yunluo Academy had produced since the ancient times was uncountable. Even the number of Saint rank trial participant must have exceeded the number of fingers. Lin Dao's heavenly weapon was ranked 7th after that. This also showed how amazing the latter was. The disciples of the Yunluo Academy are roughly divided into 3 grades. Outer Sect, Inner Sect, and Realm and Valley. And we are only Inner Sect disciples now. Including the Outer Sect, there is a ranking list in every region, showing the strength of different students. The outer sect ranking list is called the Hidden Dragon list, and the inner sect is called the Soaring Dragon ranking. Speaking of which, there are only 10 elite disciples in the realm in Valley, so the core strength of the Yunluo Academy is concentrated in the inner sect. After pondering for a moment, Zhu Kun slowly said. He told Zhu Kun everything he knew. Only 10 people. Xiao Yan was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he understood. Only Mu Yuyong, Lin Dao, who was a highly skilled person, could enter the realm in Valley. It was already quite difficult for him to have 10 people. Should we go directly to the academy? Our training has also been completed. This capital of chaos is really not a place for people to stay. After pondering for a while, Zhu Kun looked at Xiao Yan and smiled bitterly. They had been out for more than half a month. These days, they had been on the verge of death almost every day. These new students were also very strong-willed and did not get scared. Xiao Yan looked at the 8 students beside him. Under his observation, the origin monarch key within their bodies had solidified a little. It seemed that these few days of training had a pretty good effect. However, these few days, it was likely that these fellows had also received a great test in their hearts. Uncle Zhu, do you know where my father is? He mused for a moment. Xiao Yan shook his head. Capital of Chaos was filled with danger. After seeing Zhu Kun's encounter, Xiao Yan suddenly felt worried about Guyuan. Guyuan. His mission was to take the head of Wu Shiwen, who was ranked 330th on the fierce ranking. The latter's strength was only at the 6th Dao Monarch spirit. With Guyuan's strength, killing him would be a piece of cake. Zhu Kun frowned. Although he said that, he still pointed towards the southeast and said in a deep voice. I have heard of Wu Shiwen. He seems to be a bandit leader entrenched on a mountain. He has a few small fishes under his command. With Guyuan's strength, it should not be a problem. Xiao Yan nodded. He looked towards the southeast as if he had passed through layers of forest. He then looked at Zhu Kun and said, how far is this place from the Yunluo Academy? You don't have to worry about us. Once we reach this place, we will basically be in the territory of the Yunluo Academy. Those bastards will have to think twice before making a move. As if he had understood Xiao Yan's thoughts, Zhu Kun said with a smile. Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. This place was far away from the forest. Although it was still a deserted place, compared to the vast forest, it was much clearer. Xiao Yan cupped his hands to Zhu Kun. He mused for a moment. He waved his hand and a crimson gold flame appeared in his palm. The moment the flame appeared, the surrounding air instantly became extremely dry, as if it was about to burn. This is Monarch Flame. Zhu Kun raised his eyebrows as he looked at the crimson gold flame in Xiao Yan's hand. He was a little uncertain as he asked. The power of this flame was much stronger compared to when he was in Fighting Key Continent. More or less. Xiao Yan smiled when he heard this. He gathered the origin monarch key in his hand and wrapped it around the crimson gold flame. He handed it to Zhu Kun and said, the power of this flame is something that even an emperor would have to avoid. If you encounter any strong enemies along the way, I should be able to lend you a hand. Zhu Kun smiled bitterly when he heard this. He carefully took it over and looked at the burning monarch flame in his hand. He sighed. Looks like your strength has also increased rapidly in these few years. Xiao Yan chuckled. He glanced at the new students around him. His body moved and he rushed in the southeast direction. Zhu Kun could not help but sigh in a melancholy manner when he saw Xiao Yan's rapidly disappearing influence. After which, he laughed heartily. This guy was indeed extraordinary. Be careful. A black sharp blade rushed over. A pale-faced young man was at a loss for what to do. He could only stare at the sharp blade piercing through his chest. The moment the sharp blade pierced through his chest, Guyuan's roar was heard. Woo! The life force in the youth's eyes was instantly drained. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. After that, his vision turned dark and his body slowly fell to the ground. Boom! After killing the enemy with a single palm, Guyuan's face turned gloomy. He gazed at a young man wearing a blue brocade robe not far away, and his eyes were filled with endless fury. Su! Just as Guyuan was slightly distracted, a piercing sound was suddenly heard. It pierced through the air and rushed towards the center of the youth's brows. Buzz! Guyuan's eyes flashed. He waved his sleeve. The origin monarch key shook and shot down the incoming arrow. Haha, Guyuan, your Yunluo Academy is also a talented individual. That brat just now really does have the demeanor of a fierce and ambitious person. A sharp voice suddenly sounded. Gu Yuan squinted his eyes when he heard this. He looked towards a tall slope not far away. There, a burly man was standing with a blade in one hand. His face was covered with scars, and it was extremely frightening. He was Wu Shiwen, who was ranked 330 on the fierce ranking. Behind him were nearly 10 burly men. Gu Yuan kicked away the corpse by his feet and coldly snorted. He then looked at the young man in the blue brocade robe and said with an expressionless face, Li Yan, I will report your matter to the elders when we return to the academy. If you want to live now, show me your true strength. Looking at his dead comrades, Li Yan smiled disdainfully. His eyes swept across Wu Shiwen and the others, then he looked at Gu Yuan and said with a smile. What? As the leader, you can't even handle them. This time, the mission is for them. This is your main mission. Gu Yuan gave Li Yan a cold look. Li Yan was about to continue talking when he suddenly felt an inexplicable chill. He raised his head and saw Gu Yuan staring at him with an expressionless face. His eyes were full of imposing manner, as if he was a decisive king looking down on all living beings. While Li Yan's back was covered in cold sweat, Gu Yuan suddenly grinned and said, It's naturally easy to get rid of them. But I'm warning you, this is capital of chaos. You better not challenge my temper. Your methods are too childish. Gu Yuan's eyes swept across the remaining few students after his words sounded. Their faces were pale. Clearly, they had been startled by Li Yan's cold and indifferent attitude just now. All of you should stay further away. A faint voice sounded. Gu Yuan's cold eyes swept over Wu Shiwen's group. In the next moment, the dust under his feet flew and his body had already disappeared from the spot. Wu Shiwen's pupils suddenly shrunk, and his facial expression finally changed a little. This fellow's strength was indeed not as simple as it appeared on the surface. His gaze suddenly focused. Wu Shiwen shouted out loudly. The huge machete in his hand slashed towards a spot beside him. At the same time, Gu Yuan's figure suddenly appeared. He was quick to react. He stretched out his hand like lightning and firmly grabbed the machete with both of his fingers. No matter how hard Wu Shiwen tried, he couldn't move the machete at all. Gu Yuan, who had been provoked by Li Yan's actions, had a cold expression on his face. He suddenly swung his fist. The sharp force caused the air to collapse with a hissing sound. Wu Shiwen only felt darkness in front of his eyes. His body had already been sent flying, and blood was flying everywhere along the way. Gu Yuan seemed to have turned into a god of slaughter. His cold expression frightened the few people who were following Wu Shiwen. Their ki was incomparably powerful, as if they were the ancient great sovereigns who were unparalleled in the world. One punch. Looking at Gu Yuan who was not far away, Li Yan's face turned pale instantly. He initially thought that Gu Yuan could fight Wu Shiwen to the death, but he never thought that Gu Yuan would be so powerful. With just one punch, he sent Wu Shiwen, who had a notorious reputation, flying away. This won't do. I have to find a way to get rid of the one with the surname Gu, otherwise, I will be the one to die. Cold sweat broke out on Li Yan's back. Although the Yunluo Academy had stipulated that the leaders were not allowed to have any conflicts with the students, in this place, even if he was killed by Gu Yuan, no one would jump out and blame him. When he thought of this, a struggle flashed across Li Yan's eyes. Finally, he gritted his teeth and gently rubbed his finger. An exquisite pearl appeared in his hand. After which, Li Yan gently crushed it and turned it into powder. Battle through the heavens, Grand World. Chapter 255 Xiaoao's feeling. In the pile of rocks, Wu Shiwen struggled to stand up. He stared at Gu Yuan in shock. With his strength, he couldn't even last one round in front of Gu Yuan. The Yunluo Academy is really full of geniuses. How can a small leader be so powerful? He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Wu Shiwen's eyes sparkled. He cast his glance at a few new students of the Yunluo Academy who were not far away from him. Gu Yuan looked at the bandits who had retreated due to fear with a blank expression. He looked at Wu Shiwen. The latter's face was covered in blood, and he looked even more ferocious. His physical strength is really strong. He can still stand up. Gu Yuan sneered and clenched his fists. He had described Wu Shiwen in detail in the introduction of the fierce ranking. In terms of physical strength, Wu Shiwen was comparable to an emperor. Little bastard of Yunluo, don't look down on him. Wu Shiwen smiled hideously. His feet suddenly stomped on the ground and rushed towards Li Yan. Sharp light was emitted from his palm and the Origin Monarch key whistled past. Gu Yuan could not help but frown when he saw Wu Shiwen rushing towards Li Yan. His body, which was about to charge forward, also stopped after a slight hesitation. The previous scene flashed across Gu Yuan's mind. If it wasn't for the fact that they were looking for this guy, they wouldn't have fallen into the encirclement of the enemy. What made him even more furious was that when the enemy was attacking Li Yan, he actually pulled his companions in front of him as a shield. This action caused Gu Yuan to hesitate a little. He didn't know if he should save someone like Li Yan. However, he was also a decisive person. He only hesitated for a moment before rushing towards Wu Shiwen. Protecting the students was his responsibility. What punishment Li Yan would receive after this was another matter. When Gu Yuan had just left, Wu Shiwen had sensed something. The corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile. He suddenly abandoned Li Yan, who was very close to him, and rushed towards a few new students not far away. Humph! Gu Yuan frowned when he saw Wu Shiwen's sudden action. Immediately, he let out a cold snort. Did this fellow really think that he was a student who had not been deeply involved in the world? Swoosh! Gu Yuan did not hesitate at all. He did not have the shock that Wu Shiwen had expected. In the next moment, Gu Yuan had already rushed over. He leapt into the air and threw a punch. It landed on Wu Shiwen's back, causing him to spit out fresh blood. He landed on the ground in a miserable manner, causing the ground to collapse. With his thousands of years of experience in fighting Qi continent, just by relying on Wu Shiwen's scheming, it was purely looking for torture if he wanted to scheme against him. So strong. When Wu Shiwen suddenly rushed towards them, the faces of the few new students turned pale. Under Wu Shiwen's cold aura, they could not move at all. However, the moment they saw him, Wu Shiwen, who was like a devil in their hearts, was punched to the ground by Gu Yuan. Gu Yuan landed on the ground and lifted Wu Shiwen up. The latter was already on the verge of death. He looked at Gu Yuan with great difficulty and said with a miserable smile. Yunluo Academy. Gu Yuan, your name didn't appear on the Yunluo's ranking. What a pity. Gu Yuan's face was expressionless. He looked at Wu Shiwen with a calm gaze. Without wasting any time, he struck out with his palm and knocked on Wu Shiwen's chest. The latter's eyes widened, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He had already lost his breath. I will be on top of it in the future. Gu Yuan mumbled to himself. He was also looking forward to the Yunluo ranking. Being able to be listed on it not only showed his strength, but also many rewards in the academy. Seeing Wu Shiwen being killed, the rest of the underlings also fled in panic. Although Wu Shiwen was famous on the fierce ranking, just like what the others had said, those who were ranked below 200 were all small fries, so the subordinates they recruited were naturally not very powerful. Regarding the escape of the others, Gu Yuan had no intention of killing them all. After taking off the storage ring that symbolized Wu Shiwen's identity, he turned around and looked at Li Yan. The latter's body involuntarily trembled when he saw Gu Yuan's cold gaze. Although his talent was outstanding, he was still a young man in his teens. No matter how wild and unruly he was, he still felt fear when faced with Gu Yuan's endless might. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Gu Yuan spoke indifferently. Before Li Yan could exhale, Gu Yuan had already let out a cold smile. However, you have to be careful in Capital of Chaos. I have experienced even darker places than Capital of Chaos. You are courting your own death by doing this. Using his companions as a shield, no matter where he was, he would always be hated by others. After hearing Gu Yuan's words, the corner of Li Yan's mouth twitched slightly. He let out a cold snort and stopped talking. However, the hatred in his eyes intensified. Let's go, our trial has been completed. Raising his head to look at the surroundings, Gu Yuan said in a deep voice. They had been in Capital of Chaos for more than half a month. The students they led didn't die in the hands of the enemy, but one of them was killed by their own people. What a joke. Shaking his head, Gu Yuan pursed his lips and looked into the distance. He didn't know how Zhu Kun's mission was going. Although the latter's mission wasn't to kill some notorious enemy, it was to collect some extremely rare herbs. The mountain range was extremely close to the territory of Silver Moon Group. It would be bad if the people of Silver Moon Group set their eyes on it. Xiao Yan followed the direction that Zhu Kun had told him on the small mountain path. After swallowing the Fire Wings pill, a couple of miles of distance flashed by. The surrounding scenery flew as they passed through a vast forest in the blink of an eye. How did you sense where Zhu Kun is? As he hurried along, Xiao Yan revealed the doubts in his heart. When he was rushing towards the Yunluo Academy earlier, the Xiaoao suddenly reminded him that there was a strange fluctuation in a certain direction in the distance. It felt quite similar to him. It was because of this that Xiao Yan rushed over with great interest. He didn't expect to meet Zhu Kun. Upon hearing Xiao Yan's question, the Xiaoao yawned and lazily said, "That person called Zhu Kun, I don't know why, but I have a strange feeling with him. The feeling that I was able to sense just now should be a kind of feeling." Pausing for a moment, the Xiaoao suddenly said solemnly, "That Zhu Kun, what is his original form?" With his ability, even in Xiao Yan's body, he could clearly sense the slight difference between Zhu Kun and a normal human body. Xiao Yan pondered slightly when he heard this. Zhu Kun's body was the ancient void dragon, but this was the name of fighting Qi continent. Xiao Yan had no idea what it was called in the great world. Furthermore, when he was in the Purple Radiance sect, Xiao Wang once said that the great world had sent many soul bodies to the fighting Qi continent. However, the fighting monarch that had successfully arrived in the great world did not contain the ancient void dragon. Instead, it was called the Dark Flame Ancient Dragon. Between this ancient Dark Flame Dragon and the ancient Void Dragon, Xiao Yan did not dare guarantee that there was a connection between this ancient Dark Flame Dragon and the ancient Void Dragon. Seeing that Xiao Yan was silent for a long time, the Xiaoao snorted and muttered to itself. "I keep feeling that guy is not ordinary. The qi and blood in his body are very similar to mine, but different from mine. It's really strange, what exactly is it?" Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He was silent for a moment before saying, "You mean that Zhu Kun has a resonance with the bloodline in your body?" The Xiaoao curled its lips. Its eyes were filled with confusion. "Resonance? I don't know. Anyway, it's a very strange feeling. It seems familiar." Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.